Ich sitze hier mit dem großartigen Sandy Newman von The Marmalade, den ich hier zum Interview habe. Hi Sandy, first of all, thank you for the wonderful show.
Well,
it was a pleasure to have you here.
It was a fabulous audience, a fabulous audience.
Well, all the songs of The Marmalade,
Yeah.
they seem to be timeless pieces of work. Really. But what do you think is the reason for this?
I can only say, this is only my opinion, but the Marmalade songs were quite diverse, sometimes not even purposely. They were quite diverse because the band was been around so long. It was the days when it started. Most bands didn't really write. They were trying to write because everybody wanted to be the Beatles. Everybody. I don't mean they wanted to be, but they wanted to emulate that whole thing. So you had Lennon, McCartney, and everybody. Oh, I can write a song. There was a whole thing like that, and the band was called Dean Ford and the Gaylords long before my time. I saw them a few times before they went to London. The first ever Scottish band to venture from Scotland. They had done everything at that time in Scotland, so they had to go somewhere else. And they had a go, as we say. They tried. They went to London, stayed in a flat, lived very poorly, and fortunately, lots of people tried it. Fortunately for the Marmalade, it worked because they were a great band. Dean Ford and the Gaylords were a great band.
Well, it still is. It still is. You convinced me absolutely, and I think it's because it's handmade music, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, and there's always been, I call it an ethic. There's always an ethic in the Marmalade, even before I was involved in it. I was in another band then, and we used to work with them sometimes, and it was always great live performances, good vocals, and as best musicianship as you could have within the realms of who was doing whatever they were doing. So there was a pride in the nature of the band. And I would like to think that it's something that I've kept because
yeah, absolutely.
You go in front of an audience, whether it's 2, whether it's 2,000, whether it's 20,000, and you're there to make them smile when they go out of the room. That's what I think. So it's, as well as being music, there's an entertainment in it, you know. And people have to leave it with a joy in their heart. You cannot expect everyone to like what you do. No one can. But I think this audience tonight is kind of made me feel very good about that kind of old school. I call it old school theory. You know, old things.
Great. And when it comes to the, I would say, up-to-date artists, what is the difference between a band like The Marmalade and the so-called up-to-date artists and groups that you have, that you find nowadays, and what are the most magnificent things that have changed for you since you went into music business till nowadays?
Well, I've been playing with the passion of wanting to do it since I was 14 years old. So it's something I always wanted to do. You know, obviously I was still at school, and for a very short time I had a really proper job. I was supposed to be an industrial chemist, but I was playing in bands anyway, and it was the 60s. Yeah. So the measure of everything was different. It was such a formative time. It changed every country. It changed everything. And I must be honest, the Beatles were very much instrumental in that. They were the sort of harness of this whole new revolution of things. Even in the States, and then they took on the hippie thing, came about from all of that kind of. So it was a whole, dare I say it, and I really do mean this. You know, you had the Second World War, which was before I was born. Some countries were poor. Britain was quite a poor country, very poor country after that. Because I look at footage when I was young. I was born in 1951, and I look at footage from then, it's like the century before, because it was poor. And I'm sure there were regions in Germany that were kind of like that as well. It was a horrible thing that happened both ways round. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what it did to the culture that developed into, you know, you had this particular venue, I was told this evening, was like a youth club where all that revolution started because the 60s thing came along and the enthusiasm for the music came along. It was a generation chasing in their own identity.
So should there be more revolution of upcoming artists?
No, well, one would hope that there will never be anything quite as horrific as that particular situation I mentioned earlier. The whole world would change after it. You know, that happened a long time ago now. But now we live in such a volatile society anyway, with the advancement of technology. All the great things bring bad things. You know, the nature of the fact of the mobile computer, I call it. It's not a phone, it's a computer. Yeah. You can instantly call up an army anywhere in the world. You know, if you went back 40 years, that's like an impossible science fiction dream. Yeah. You know, so where it goes, I don't know. But musically, you know, human beings are human beings, and things make them move. And music is a fantastic thing for anyone. It's a therapy even for people. You know, it's actually used as a therapy for people because it engages the brain. And if people like what you do as an artist, they kind of like what you do. So that's about as much as I could say about that without being seriously boring.
So you truly came around in the world, but what do you prefer, the large concert halls or the big festivals, or is it more the more personal clubs that we have like here?
It's very similar to the Marmalade sort of catalogue of hit records. I like diversity. You know, I'm as happy playing to 2-3 people, because if you're playing to 2-3 people, you can be playing exactly the same thing. It can be very stripped down, but it's what they get from it. Yes. And that becomes, obviously, the nature of your performance becomes a little subtly a bit more magnified when it goes from 20 to 200 to 2,000. You can still do the same thing. There's a slight, it's just about projection then, as an artist, I think. Well, for me, that's the way I see it. But at the same time, you don't think about it, you automatically adjust if you've been doing it for such a long time.
Of course, I can imagine.
You know,
I can imagine.
It's not something that was too much a forethought, you know, don't just think about it. Oh, this, how many's in? Oh, it's such, oh, we'll need to do it like this tonight. You just do what you do, but there is a certain different kind of projection when you've got a mass crowd, a big one, then you can do other things. You can get out. I mean, the last big one we did in Germany, it was 17,000 people all standing up in their seats, clapping their hands, and we're not even playing then because they're waiting to sing the bit that they know that we're going to do. Yeah. You know, and so you can't do that with 2 people. But there's other things you can do without, because there's levels of projection. Yeah. But the main object is to make people leave the building with a smile on their face. Yeah.
And the clothes wet.
Oh, clothes wet, yeah. You go outside and you get cold, you know. Oh, it keeps the appetite busy.
Well, as you might know, this location has some historical background when it comes to music of the 60s and 70s. So, honestly, how was it to perform in this club for you?
It was something that I wasn't looking forward to because the nature of the building, only because when we got here, you do a sound check and it's a very hard building. And I know that when people are in it, it all goes different. So we had a bit of a horror sound check today, so it was all a bit, I don't know. But once the people were, the audience was fab. You couldn't wish for a better one. You couldn't wish for a better one, right from the first song.
We liked it very, very, very much. And one last question. Are there any plans for the future? Solo projects, albums, tours? What are you going to do? What can we expect from the Marmalade and the members?
The last album was done because the nature of the band at the time was really good. There was a great vibe. And, you know, I've been doing this a long time with the Marmalade. And I never ever thought we'd do another album. So we did that one. And it was called Penultimate. That was the name of the album. And that was a reason for that, because I wanted to leave it open. You know, so it could be the one before last. And now that we are what we are at this stage in life, I'm pretty certain there's going to be Ultimate, which may be the last one. I would imagine it would be, just the nature of ages. But you know, the Rolling Stones have just done their 23rd studio album, so who knows? But it's having the inspiration and the will to want to.
Yeah, and you definitely have the power.
Well, I hope so. You know,
I can see that when you stand on stage, there is a power for a new album.
And you don't need to write all the songs yourself. It doesn't need to be that, because the nature of the band means that you take a tune, and if it's something that you really like, and you can do a version that has got its own identity with how you have approached the song, because it's a great song, then that's a different thing from a cover. You know, it's got to be exactly like the record. No, it doesn't. If it's a great song, it can be all sorts of things. I'm only saying this because some people really enjoyed the way we performed Homeward Bound tonight, which is totally nothing to do with the old record, but it is, because it's a song. But it's got a bit of energy in there. It's not a ballad anymore.
Okay. We are definitely looking forward to hear from you. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for answering my questions.
On behalf of all the guys, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much. And take care of yourself.
I'll do my best.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks.